Now what we're going to do is check out the save method that is saving items in the database using the Python shell. We're going to jump into python manage.py shell. If I press enter, this is the Python shell with Django. So I can actually import all of my Django stuff here. That is, I can go from shortener.models, import our cur URL. And I can do all sorts of things in here, which we'll come back to, but cur URL.objects.all. Oops, let's spell it correctly. That's cur URL with the capital URL.objects.all. Press enter. This is called a query set. This is all of the objects in the database. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new object. There's a few ways to do this. There's the standard sort of Python way to do it of creating something from a class. So I'll just say new object equals to cur URL parentheses that initializes this new instance, right? So I can do new object dot and dot URL, the lowercase URL, of course, and we'll do http / and I'll say CFE join or let's do a real URL, and that's joincfe.com, and we close that off. Cool. If I tried to save this, well, let's go ahead and do that. So I'll do new object.save. This is the save method. This method is built into the model class itself. If I press enter, it actually saved it. And I know this because I can go into the database and look at my cur URLs. I notice that this is in here. And I see that, hey, the short code was not filled out, but it saved. It's actually in the database. Well, the reason this happened is because we kind of did a shortcut. We didn't actually use the built-in Django methods, right? So since it's code and we're writing it and we're controlling it, we can override the things that are built into all of these features, right? I'm the developer. I'm doing everything here. So in the admin, all of those features are definitely in there, and they're going to prevent any like standard user, non-developing user they prevent bad things from happening. So if I hit save and continue, it's now saying this field is required, right? Even though it's in the database and it's actually stored there because we did this manual way of storing it, it's definitely going to come in here and it's going to show it. So that's one way to do it, but I can also still update this by doing new object dot shortcode, and we'll say ABC123, and then new object dot save. Call that save method again. If I just reload this page here, that shortcode is actually showing up, right? So this is actually interacting with the database. So these are Python calls that you can make to actually run and actually save things in the database. It's really cool. That's what this shell does for us. So how do we do it in the Django way? So we did it in the Python way, but how do we do it in the Django way? So I'll just say object2 equals to. Now we'll say cur URL.objects.create, and now we pass in the arguments for the required things. So that is URL or shortcode. Actually, we could leave it empty, and we can do object2. Let's actually look into our cur URLs. Notice that it did actually create an object in there. So it's still not bringing up those errors, but we did create a new object. We do object2.url equals to, and I'll do http joincfe.com/projects, and then object2.shortcode equals to another code, and object2.save. And we refresh in here. We now get that new URL with that shortcode. So again, inside of the shell, we can do all of this manual stuff. Another thing to do, create, we can do object2, the actual real way to do create without any errors, and that's object or cur URL.objects.create. And then we pass in the parameters that are related to the URL fields, the required ones. So we would say URL equals to http://joincfe.com/enroll. And then we would also add in shortcode equaling to enroll or something like that. and we press enter, that is actually the Django specific way that we would want to create something. We can also do something called get or create. So object 3 created equals to cur url.objects.get or create, and we'll just say URL equals to http joincfe.com, and that's it. Press enter. We'll print out created, and then we'll also print out object 3. So this is a get or create call. That means it's trying to get the object or it's going to create it. So when I say get, I can now, inside of object 3, I can actually see what the shortcode is by just typing it out. Right? So I actually grabbed that particular object. We will definitely come back to this call, but I just wanted to show you the last way on how you can actually create something. You can also use get. So if I did object 4, I could do cur url.objects.get, and I can just say URL equals to http://google.com. And in my case, it doesn't exist, right? So it raises an error. So this is Django raising an error saying that the cur matching query does not exist. So this query is not real. So that's how we actually can create these items. Now let's actually talk about overriding that save method. So we've seen the save method in action, both create, get or create, as well as .save. All three of those things actually call the save method if it's created, right? So notice that we printed out created and it said false. If it said true, so if this was not a URL that existed, actually let's see that. So I'll just do object 4 equals to, we'll say cur url.objects.get or create, and now URL equals to http://google.com. And we might as well add in the shortcode because we'll need it. Shortcode equals to Google, and we press enter. If I print out object 4, I see a tuple or tuple with the object itself and a Boolean value. That Boolean value is related to that created, right? So in this case, object 4 was just created and now it's there. If I run that one more time and do it as object 5, that Boolean value should change to something different. So we do 5, print out object 5, and we've got now a Boolean value of false, but I still have that object coming back, right? So it's no longer created, but it actually is in the database. All right, so we refresh inside of here. We now have 5 objects in here, and we can see that the ID on that last one is 5. Cool. So that's a little bit of like working with a Python shell and understanding the create and save method. And the next one will actually override the save method. If you have any questions on what we did, let us know. Otherwise, let's keep going.